Hey friends, before I start this episode, I just want to share something that came to me from a listener who sent in an email wondering if I would take a look at an event that they're having and possibly lend my support. And as this podcast is called Gather, Connect, Create, and as I am all about sharing ways that we can do exactly that, I am so happy to share this event in support of an organization that is helping to support women who have been diagnosed with breast cancer. Rather than tell you about it myself, I'm going to turn the mic over to the founder and board president of Savage Support, Deanna Savage.
Hi, Megan. We're throwing a party at Milwaukee's historic Oriental Theater on June 11th with a private screening of This Is Spinal Tap, because this year, Savage Support turns 11, and we're absolutely going to 11. I started Savage Support after going through breast cancer myself. I know what it's like to sit in treatment or post-surgery, worrying about groceries, bills, or how you're getting to your next appointment. Cancer doesn't pause real life. That's where Savage Support steps in. We're 100% volunteer run with zero paid staff, and every dollar stays right here in southeastern Wisconsin, helping people in treatment with groceries, transportation, personal care items, and just everyday essentials. 11 years, and the need is still growing. And this event helps us keep showing up for our community. It's going to be an incredible night of film, music, laughter, and people coming together for something that truly matters. And honestly, it's just a really fun night out for a great cause. Join us June 11th at 6:30 p.m. at the Oriental Theater. Tickets are available at savagesupport.org. Come help us turn it up and pack the house. Thank you so much for including us in the Gather, Connect, Create podcast.
I hope you will consider turning it up to 11 with Savage Support on June 11th and maybe see you there. Now on to today's episode. Thanks for listening. Hey, welcome back to Gather, Connect, Create. I'm your host, Megan Schultz, and this is the podcast where week after week I am talking with interesting people who I hope leave you with new ideas and new challenges and new ways to think about gathering, connecting, and creating wherever you find yourself, because that is what we need more of in this world. Today on the podcast, listeners will recognize the voice of this guest. Today, I'm welcoming back my friend and clinical psychologist, author, faculty, and teacher of self-compassion, well-being, digital harm reduction, and just all around delightful human being. I have asked Thekla on today because as we transition into summer, it's a perfect time to pause and to contemplate not only what we want to do this summer, what kind of fun are you planning to have, any vacations you might want to take, or books you want to read, or whatever you're planning for this summer, but also how do you want to be? How do you want to be in relationship with the people around you and in relationship to your devices? Longtime listeners will know that this is the conversation Thekla and I continue to have. In fact, it was a year ago we had this conversation for the first time on the podcast, and a lot has happened since then. And I thought it would be helpful to bring her back on at the start of summer to give some helpful advice is the wrong word because it's really specific to each individual. So there's no pretty package with a ribbon or a bow that will tell you the best way to be this summer with your technology, with your attention, with your devices. But we have some tips, and she's got some great ideas for things that you can think about as you head into summer. So I'm not going to give too much away. I want to dive right into this conversation with Thekla Brumder Ross. Thekla, welcome back to the podcast.
Hi, Megan. It's so great to be back.
I'm so happy to have you here. And I just want to celebrate that it has been a year since the two of us launched our series last May 2025 about attention. And holy cow, what a year it has been. Oh my gosh. I want to say how grateful I am for the conversation that has really inspired me to be more present and to stay grounded this whole last year. Not that I wasn't trying to do that before, of course, but like in my own attention and steer clear of the things that try to steal my attention, namely the screens and the apps and all the distractions that come with that. Because in just a few short weeks, I will have been off social media for a year. And remember last May, I was like, I just want to do it for 1 month. Can I do it? Help me for 1 month. And it's almost been 12. So I'm not sure I'll ever go back. We'll see. But it feels good to know that this conversation that we started last year has been resonating with listeners too. I've been getting a lot of feedback about our conversations on attention, and not only with listeners of the podcast here, but also in our local Milwaukee community, and that was the whole purpose of something that for me happened over the course of the last year, which was rebranding to Gather, Connect, Create, because I think people really are looking for this kind of connection that we have been talking about for the last year. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And what about you? I want to know what are you celebrating in the last year?
First of all, thank you for being willing, Megan, to just also talk about your internal process out loud for your community. I know that's part of what a podcaster does, but you really did it with such integrity and talked about the messy middle and, the hard parts in the beginning. And you really modeled for your community what sustainable behavior change looks like. I mean, to be talking a year later about a change that you made a year ago and how it's evolved, like as a behaviorist, I can't think of anything more beautiful. If we had such a thing as a 1-year chip like they do in the rooms of recovery, I would be giving it to you right now, and honoring you and where you've gone on your journey. And progress, not perfection, as we say in the rooms of recovery. And, like just noticing, again, that's what this whole thing is about. It's not about cutting anything out completely. It's about consciousness and where do I want to put it? And where do I want to replace it? And where do I want to redesign my life? We were all unconsciously put into these digital lives. And then it's sort of like, okay, take a couple steps back. And how do I align it with my values? And you've done that. You modeled it for your community. So amazing job. Amazing job.
Thank you.
Amazing job. And I just continue to have this conversation at scale. Like I'm doing it in HR rooms, as folks know on the pod. I'm writing a book and it got a publisher and it has wings and legs.
Yay!
And half of the book is going into the hands of the publisher in 2 weeks. So it's very alive and well. The book is an active practice. So it's literally doing what you and I did on the podcast, but like for people in their everyday lives. So they can do it with their friends and their book club members and their C-suite partners and their teams and the people at the dinner table. So super accessible.
Yeah. And that comes out in 2027 sometime in the new year.
Pre-release in early 2027. If folks want to be a part of the movement, I'm not going to be spamming you, but you can sign up for the book club on my website, thekla.com. Scroll down to the bottom. Very, very, very easy checklist. Less than 15 seconds to fill it out. I just want to buy the book. Leave it at that. I want to buy 5 for my friends, my family, my community, my neighbor. Or I really want to be a part of the movement and doing like what we're doing, Megan, and creating collectives and gathering and connecting and doing digital harm reduction at scale. So whatever it looks like for you, or maybe you're just curious and this is your first step and like, yeah, sure, that sounds like an interesting book. I'm interested. Yeah. Jump on the website and it's really fun. So if folks are interested who are listening are interested in speakers. I'm doing a lot of speaking about it. I'm doing a lot of consulting and advising responsible product innovation tech companies who are trying to do the right thing before regulation happens. So let's give some snaps to those folks. I mean, in a market where there's no regulation and it's easier to just build more addiction, there are beautiful human beings out there who are doing the opposite, and give them a lot of credit.
Yeah, it really does feel like we are in a moment for this. And I don't think it's just that that's the way I've configured the newsletters and Substacks and, that come to me. I do think even if this wasn't a topic that I was so passionate about, I would still see it, because I think we're in that moment of, as you said, we got thrown into this digital landscape. And now we're just pausing to say, whoa, 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 hang on. Let's be much more intentional about what we're doing on this path rather than just following where the tech companies say we need to go. Right. So I feel like, yeah, this is the moment.
It is. Can I add one more gratitude? You and I have both been working with Kat Zilka, who was on your podcast with us, with the Disconnect community. So youth and teens who are gathering to re-examine their relationship with their screens. And my shout out is one to Kat, and for creating that, but two for the teens and the youth who've deeply inspired me. I am now like fully inspired by Gen Z. They are not going back to the past like you and I will, or the boomers will, right? Of life before digital. They're digital natives, but they're creating a future of what their life is going to look like better and more improved with a more conscious relationship with technology and screens. And they want it. They want it. You know, I said in an APA, American Psychological Association talk this week, I said, people want to be asked about their alcohol use from their doctors because they know it matters to their health. People want to be asked about their screen use, especially teens and Gen Z, because they know it matters to their health. So I'm deeply inspired by them. Also, your son being one of them. I am. If he's listening, I doubt he listens, but if he's listening, you know, resistance gives us a lot of information and a lot of data. And I'm deeply grateful for the way the younger generation is showing up. So I just want to shout out to that.
Same. Yeah. If you missed that conversation, listeners, go back and find that interview back in February of this year with Kat Zilka, because it is really inspiring to see how she is taking this curriculum, these gatherings for the teens and trying to scale it, which would be great so that it can move beyond just Milwaukee, but also just giving them a voice, as you say, giving them a platform to talk about what doesn't get talked about in schools that often. So here's what I thought, because as we head into another summer, for many of us, if you're parents or have school age kids, or even if you don't, just the feeling of the summer shift, right? And so we have this season, we have another opportunity to make choices, to be intentional about how we want to be, both in community and in relationship to our distractions, our devices, our screens. I thought that we might have a conversation about digital harm reduction and how people can take some of the concepts and ideas from, I don't know what you call it, the harm reduction philosophy or pedagogy, and bring them into summer, like really tangible things that people can do. And I know this aligns perfectly. This is what your book is. Here are ways that you can be in better relationship with these devices. But I thought before we jump into specifics, for people who have probably heard the term digital harm thrown around, but may not actually understand the concept in its entirety, could you give us sort of a layperson's explanation of what does digital harm reduction even mean, or what does harm reduction even mean, and then in relation to digital technologies?
Yeah, great question. So the harm reduction movement, public health movement, started in the 60s and 70s around HIV and AIDS epidemic and hepatitis B. And it was started by active drug users themselves saying to each other and to one another, like, we have to reduce our harm while we're using drugs so less people get infected with the virus. How do we do that? But how do we keep using, right? So they didn't want to give it up, but they wanted their friends not to die. And that's really powerful. And so they started cleaning their syringes before sharing them. And less people were getting infected with HIV. And as a result, they were reducing their harm. And now we have things like clean syringe locations where people who use drugs can go get access to clean syringes, safe use places so that people can use in safe environments and not get harmed while they're using. There is a lot of controversy around the harm reduction movement. I obviously am in the business of addiction medicine, and so I'm happy to speak with people in more depth, but it's truly about meeting people where they are. So it's about, in this moment, where are you? Most people would tell you, active drug users or not, it's a disease. They didn't choose it. Of course they want to reduce their harm. Of course they do. And we all want to do that with our digital devices. We all do. We all are experiencing shame and guilt because we know we're addicted, whether or not there's a DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual diagnosis, or not. All of us, including myself, who does this work, know it. And so we all want to reduce our harm. And how do we do that? It's like food. We're not going to cut it all altogether. This isn't an abstinence conversation. Kudos to those who are going off the grid and doing, like, if that's aligned with your values, rock on, more power to you. Most of us can't live like that. You and I are on Zoom right now with this technology happening in between us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about how do we reduce harm in our lives, to be in alignment with our values, and to really be able to use the technology in a way that serves us and not the other way around.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that's helpful to hear. And I do, again, just want to reiterate what you just said. This is not an abstinence conversation. We're not saying, I mean, even though I sort of did that last summer with just the Instagram and Facebook, I took those off and I made it for myself, that abstinence, which felt like doable because I had set a limit for myself, right? I said, I'm just going to do the month of June. And it turned into July, August, September, and it worked for me, but this is not a podcast to say, here's what you should do this summer, give it all up, delete all the apps, right? We're going to talk about how to live in more balance with, in real time reality.
And that was a harm reduction movement you did last summer. So you didn't give up your phone completely. You didn't disconnect. It would be like removing sugar from your diet. You said the most harmful thing on my phone right now last year was social for me and my well-being. And so I'm going to see what living my life without social would look like. And you took it step by step by step. And right now you're still evaluating and asking the question, is it still serving me? And it's still serving you. And that is recovery in action. Like that is what you ask yourself on a daily basis. Like, is this still serving me? And that for you was reducing harm. And for other people, it could look like cutting out the phone from the first 30 and the last 30 minutes of the day. For other people, it could be having no internet on my mobile phone. There are a whole host of ways, and there are all these cool apps now like Opal and Brick, and ways to really redesign, as I say, redesign your digital environment to support reduced harm.
So we often head into summer with these grand ideas. We're going to go hiking, we're going to do camping, we're going to read on the front porch. And it's hot in Wisconsin, so we end up inside in the AC, doom scrolling. Why is it hard for us to stay off our screens in those particular moments? And just, do you have some concrete things that we can do when we feel that pull to the doom scroll?
Such a good question. First, why do we feel it? Life in the digital world is fast. Your dopamine hits are fast. Your rewards are fast. Everything is moving very quickly. From the scroll to the information to the news, it's all happening. And you feel very included. You feel like, oh, I'm up to date. And I'm a part of it and I'm not missing out. And the real world is slower. The time duration between dopamine hits is more drawn out. Now, the hits last longer, but it's more drawn out. And you have to rely on yourself to feel loved and included and valued, and your neighbors and your community and your family. But you don't get the external validation of the like and the thumbs up and the heart emojis and, all the things. So it's an internal, external validation consideration. It's a speed consideration. And I really want to go back to that because I was asked on a podcast recently if I had a magic wand, what would I do to help us all? And it's a values conversation. What do you value most? Like, where do you, at the end of this summer, if you were to write a story about what happened in the summer, like, what did it include? Where do you want to put your time and energy? And it may be that you relax for a scroll for an hour in an afternoon to downregulate. Again, this is not an all or nothing conversation. This is about intention and values and how do we redesign our lives to be our best selves.
So how do we, when we have those 10 minutes on the porch, or when we, are driving hours to wherever we're going on vacation, how do we retrain our brains to tolerate 10 minutes of boredom? Because, when people think of summer, at least I don't know, maybe this is, maybe digital natives don't look at summer like this, but when I think of my childhood summers, I was bored because they were so long. The days were so long. I don't mean bored in like a whiny bored way. I just mean like every day was an open book. What am I going to do today? You know, I didn't have a screen to entertain me. I had books, I had, maybe I'm making this sound more idyllic. I probably watched a shit ton of General Hospital or whatever I was watching back in the day, you know, when I was
Days of our
10, all that stuff I was
lives.
trying to sneak while my parents were at work. But how do we retrain our brain to be that kind of bored that doesn't have to reach for something, that isn't always grasping for that digital dopamine hit? What are some tips to sit with that?
There are many, but first let's talk about like where in your day, I would ask listeners, do you really want to redesign your life for presence? Is it the morning? Is it the night? Is it the middle of the day? We're all different people. We're all different people. I can give you recommendations, but that's not helpful if that's not the place that serves you. So like where would nourish you most as you move into summer and you think, God, I would really love it if my mornings were just for me, you know? If I could be listening to the birds as the sun comes up, if I could be mindful with my cup of coffee and a journal, or just be sitting there, whatever it is. And maybe it's nighttime, and maybe it's neither of those. Maybe it's, I'd really love to be one of those people who goes to the block party this summer without my phone, you know, and I'm just super present. I'm totally present with my neighbors and my community. Maybe it's, I want to be the person at the concert who's like fully there and not videotaping the concert, right? I'm going to Summerfest and I just want to be present. So I would say find the spaces and places in your life that you want to be present this summer. Maybe it is that family vacation, right? The camping trip, and you want to just turn the phone off. Tell your family and friends the phone's going to be off and you're going to be disconnected for that period of time. And for folks who are really tapped into their digital lives and like social is a part of your work and your life and you're really active on it, I would do little experiments like go on a vacation where you don't post your photos and go on a vacation where you do post your photos. And how do you feel different between those two? Do you feel like the vacation didn't happen because you didn't post? Or did you feel like the vacation was that much more special because it existed for you and your family and the people you connected with and not the external validation of the world? So just be a scientist, be a reporter and explore in your own life. Where is the spaces and places that I want to be connecting to myself and others in nature? And so those are specific times of day I want folks to identify. And then do some little tests and experiments. I say all data is good data. So none of this like, I'm going to completely cut it out from this. And then if I don't, and then I'm back on it, I'm going to shame myself. No, like these are just tests. And we're testing to see what works for people. I'll just say myself, I'm very seasonal in the way that I live. And in the wintertime, it's very easy for me not to access my phone before sunrises because it's dark for a while in the mornings. And I have a lot of quiet time before Megan and my kids both go to school very early. And so I have time in the morning really to myself and it's quiet and it's dark. It's not the same in the summer. People are up and my neighbors are out and the birds are chirping and the squirrels are out. And you know, nature's reminding me like, you're just visiting here and we were all here first. And that's okay. It's just different. And so it's about realigning my practices with the different season.
I think what this is inviting us to do, which I think is actually sometimes hard for people, is to pause and just take a minute to really be with yourself and think about this, like setting an intention. When you say it's easy to throw out, I want to set an intention for the summer. But what does that mean to set an intention? Well, I think that means to get quiet and to find that time to whatever that means for you, if you're a writer, to spend some time with a journal, if you're just somebody who needs to sit and think about it, to do that. If it means to, like you said, you alluded to earlier, thinking about, you know, if you were to write a story about how your summer turned out, you know, just to have those kind of that time for some visualizations. So I feel like that is a challenge I might issue to listeners to, before summer starts, before you get caught up in the different way the schedule changes, still busy, still crazy busy, but just in a different way, the summer busy, to take some time to really reflect on what do you want this summer to look like? How do you want to feel? What do you want to be able to say at the end of the summer that you did or didn't do?
Can I give some concrete examples? Because I know our listeners, this has come up a lot. People want a perfectly wrapped box of exactly what to do
Mm,
around the digital world. And in the truest harm reduction way, I can't give that to you because harm reduction is meeting you where you are in your life, in your journey. As a mom, single mom with 2 jobs, as a privileged person who's, I don't know, going to a country club this summer, I don't know what your world and your life is, but the intention conversation is like, how does it apply to you? So June 21st is the start of summer. So to Megan's quest, 1 to 3 intentions this summer and get super specific. If you are somebody who wants to reevaluate the start of your day or the end of your day, I highly recommend the best thing you can do for your brain is to eliminate screens from the first 30 minutes and the last 30 minutes of the day. It seems like a lot. If that's too much, start with 5 minutes, move up to 10, move up to 15, move up to 20. If the middle of the day is the time that you want to slow down because you've been rushing your kids all around to different things, or maybe they're at summer camp all day and it's the only part of your day you have to yourself, highly recommend eating a meal not in front of a screen. Let me throw myself under the bus and say I have a little note in front of me right now that says lunch not in front of screen. And on the back, it says nourishing yourself with presence. So it's a goal of mine too. So if you're doing that, you're not alone. But middle of the day is nourishing yourself. Like just focus on how the food is being metabolized in your body.
mm,
So, but all 3 of those are examples of ways that you can slow down during the beginning of the day, the middle of the day, and the end of the day. Get an accountability buddy, talk to your friends, to your neighbors, to folks at work, do it with somebody. Megan and I obviously did it together on the podcast last year, so you can listen to that for consultation and support. Find people in your community. Everybody wants to be doing this, so challenge yourself and challenge somebody else to
mm.
do it. And there is no right or wrong. Just go on some experiments.
Hmm. I love that. Yeah, one of the questions that Megan, who was on the podcast a few weeks ago, who I did the forest bath and the forest walk with, the question that she always comes back to on these very slow, very intentional walks is just, what are you noticing? You know?
Mhm.
And what do we want to remember? What do we want our kids to remember about their summers? And what do we want to remember about our summers? We're allowed to have fun too. It's not just the
Totally.
kids who get the fun summers, right?
Totally. I will give mine. I'm going to try really hard this summer that I say yes to more of my kids' bids for connection, whether that's in front of a screen or not. I'm just going to
Mm,
say yes to what
mm.
they want to do. And if it's watching the Babysitters Club and the version I've already seen for the 3rd time, I'm just going to say yes. And I am going to slow down and be
Yeah,
present with them. Yeah. So,
I love that. Yeah, saying yes, yes. I feel like sometimes the social media in the summer can sometimes just be a 24/7 reel of everyone else's best life. And look what I'm doing. And look at this beautiful vacation I'm on. Look how great I look in this bikini and yada, yada, yada. And I'm wondering, last summer we talked a lot about self compassion. And I wonder how we can use that framework of self compassion to navigate some of the FOMO that comes up, some of the envy that comes up when people are scrolling through other people's summer plans, summer travels.
I'm not going to do justice to some of my research colleagues who study parasocial relationships, but a parasocial relationship is a relationship you think you have with somebody, but you're watching your life and you actually have no contact with them. We can think about it towards Hollywood stars, right? We have these ongoing dialogues. Well, now because of podcasts and social media, people have parasocial relationships with a lot of things, and now people have parasocial relationships with AI.
Hmm.
All of that to say, there's this like I'm involved and I'm there and I'm part of it because I'm observing it, but you're not. That's not a bidirectional connection. It's unidirectional. So
Hmm.
I would say whenever the FOMO is coming up, find ways to bidirectionally connect. Pick up the phone and call somebody. Go talk to your neighbor. Go talk to somebody in your home. If you're at work, talk to a colleague. Write somebody a letter. find a way where it's a bi-directional conversation with somebody that you physically actually know, where you can get the validation, the reinforcement from a bi-directional connection instead of unidirectional. Because you're never going to get that from the social media. And I would ask yourself an inquiry question. How many of your friends that you're following on social media this summer in their entire lives do you actually talk to those people this whole summer? So maybe you get to the end of the summer, it's like, of all the people I watched summers go by, how many of them do I actually interact with in my life? And then how many of them do I want to interact with, but I don't reach out because I just passively watch their lives on social? As somebody who's not on social, I pick up the phone and call the people, or I see the people that I want to see in my life. Do I get to see everyone? Absolutely not. There's so many beautiful souls I would love to see that I don't have enough time to see. Or I could say make enough time, depending on how you ask it. But I'm not passively observing the people's lives just to be included. Because that doesn't feel inclusive to me. It's unidirectional. It's one-sided, and that you're not actually getting a human connection. So again, social media was created on the scaffolding of social comparison, and it was intended to connect us, but it is doing the exact opposite, because human connection is bi-directional. So maybe if you're connecting via direct message and you're direct messaging with somebody on social, fantastic. Maybe that is your bi-directional connection, but watching reels of other people's lives is unidirectional.
That is such good advice. I love that. To really just, again, what are you noticing? Just being mindful of these relationships that we have or don't have or think we have or would rather have. Do you have thoughts on things that people can do? I think we've talked about this in an episode before, that kind of phantom vibration that you get, or just that itch or that tick, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, to the impulse to lift up your phone and check it just because it's been a minute or 2 minutes and maybe a new message has come in, or we just get in that habit. Do you have something that people could do instead?
Yes. So phantom phone syndrome, which like 80% of us have, which is that feeling that Megan's mentioning, that you can feel your phone vibrate, but your phone's not actually on you. Or like you look down at your watch, if you're an Apple Watch wearer or a wearable wearer, and it's notifying you, but then your wearable's not actually there. It's their bodies are actually sensing the signals of these technologies without them even being on us. And companies are creating phantom products so that we can feel more safe, right? A fake phone that you can carry around in your pocket to feel like your phone's there even when it's not there. Transitional object, we would call it. Again, great scientist question, like noticing when this is coming up for you. A friend of mine, Chelsea, who's in the book, she talks about being in the birth of her niece. She was in, her sister invited her into that beautiful sacred process, and she of course didn't have her phone or any devices with her. And during the birth, she felt like a vibration on her wrist, and she looked down as if to check it, and she was like, I'm not wearing my Apple Watch. I didn't. And she called me after, and she was like, I was so mad to think I was in this sacred moment with my sister and the birth of a baby, and I felt like I had technology ringing on my body, but I didn't. So she made a conscious choice. Like, she is only wearing her Apple Watch when she's exercising. Otherwise, it does not exist in her life. It's only when she's exercising. My friend Lorenzo, who runs a beautiful company called Journey, which helps people take small individual journeys like back into their life. He always puts his phone in a different room of the house that he's in. So it's never in the same room, because we know that 70% of the time it's like pulling our attention away from us, even if it's on the table upside down. So if it's there, you're subconsciously being pulled to all of the things that are on your phone. So just like completely put it in a different room. And before you grab your phone, we've talked about this. I think I talked about release the grip, which is also in the book. Often before I grab my phone, I turn my palm up and ask myself, what do I need right now? Not what do I want? And usually it's self-compassion. It's, I need water. I need to go to the bathroom. I need to take a breath. I might need to just ask myself, what do I need to do on my phone? Make a list of 12 things and then go be more efficient on it. I'm constantly setting little timers for myself. Like, I am on LinkedIn, and it started to get unmanageable because it is a social media now. And so I set timers. Like, okay, I go in and do this work thing. And then after a timer goes off, it's like, are you still doing the work thing or have you been pulled somewhere else? And so I use it as a way to check in with myself. Again, going back to consciousness and intention.
Yeah, I think this is going back to intention. This is such a good time, this seasonal swap to summer, to really think about all of the different things and what would work. Like you said in the very beginning, this has to work for you, right? So it might not be possible for you to leave your phone in the other room because maybe you need it for work or something, but are there what would be your way to be more intentional when you have that impulse to grab it? And in order to figure out what that way is, you have to pause for just a minute and really think about that. So, again, another invitation to listeners to really take a few minutes to think about what is going to work for me this summer. What's realistic given my space, my job, my kids, what all the hats I have to wear, but what is going to work for me this summer? Because I think it probably shifts as well as life shifts, and as season shifts. So I'm curious if you have heard anything about, we've been talking for listeners, and most of the listeners to this podcast are adults, but also summer is a big time when we switch focus to kids being maybe with a lot more free time than they otherwise would have had during the school year. Is there anything that we should be thinking about or talking about in terms of our kiddos?
Yeah, beautiful question, right? So summer includes kids.
Mm.
They may be at camp, they may be at home all day, and it depends and varies based on our life situations. But I think it's important for us to look at the data. And interestingly, a lot of data just came out from the Institute for Family Studies. And they surveyed parents across the United States and analyzed how they're approaching technology and independence for their kids. And, this is data. So, it's not 100% perfect. There's always limitations. But I think it's important and curious to look at overprotection in the real world and underprotection in the virtual world, as Jonathan Haidt likes to say. And you can be a fan of him or not. I know that there's a lot of controversy right now. I know you've had some folks on the podcast who even brought it up. And I would just like to say that in retrospect, it's always easier for us to point the finger and say, well, that was correlational and not causational. And what I think back to our awareness conversation Jonathan Haidt has done, he has raised awareness about a very large problem in our culture that we all were caring to ignore. From the tech companies to our families, to our systems, to everybody. And so like his approach or not, like the data he uses or not, he was raising awareness in some way, shape, or form. But what this study found is we give kids devices a lot younger than maybe we wanted to or thought we should. And we've given them a lot more freedom in the device world than we have in the real world. And it's time for us to maybe reconsider questioning those values, right? Right now, less kids are free to roam unsupervised in the real world than they are in the virtual world. And there is an opportunity for us to ask, are we giving freedom to our children in the right places and spaces? And again, that I'm not placing judgment and I'm not asking people to be right or wrong. I'm just asking them to be curious. So are you giving your kids ample freedom this summer in the digital world and not a lot in the real world? And then question yourself around that. The data actually proves that the real world is safer than the virtual world right now. And so be thinking of that. And then how would you create a space and a place for your kids to be in the real world in a way that felt safe enough for you? As a parent, I'll say, is this my anxiety or is it their anxiety, right? Is this my opportunity to give some freedom or not? And how much more willing we are to give that freedom in the digital world than we are in the real world.
I think that's sort of an interesting place to think about wrapping up this conversation, because it goes back to this idea that there really is no nice, pretty box with a bow. It's each of us really has to be intentional about our intentions and intentional with our attention and really thoughtful about who do we want to be? How do we want to be, with the time that we have here? And having the data is helpful, but also each of us has our own specific familial data, individual data. Like there is so much that, much as I keep asking Thekla on and we keep talking about this, and I think we need to keep this conversation going. I hope you'll keep coming back, Thekla, but I still feel like we're never going to have a one pretty little package, right? It's always going to be this conversation of questions, maybe more questions than answers.
More questions than answers. And isn't that the hard, messy stuff of life? More questions than answers. Can I give a couple plugs for folks who are wanting to explore a little more this summer when it comes to tech in this conversation? If AI is something you're digging into, there's a great documentary by similar folks who made The Social Dilemma. It's called The AI Doc. It's fantastic. You can now get it on streaming on Prime and on YouTube. I think it's coming to Netflix soon.
Okay.
There's another one called Your Attention Please. Similar, but more about the social media movement and what some activist parents have been doing in that space around policy change. So I highly recommend both of those. We can put a few links in the podcast notes to the Human Change Movement. Center for Humane Tech has an incredible playbook around how AI is not inevitable and we can all take a leading role in our part in it. And we want to hear from you. If I'm honest, Megan, we want to hear from folks like what worked, what was hard, what was challenging, where can we join you? So you can send me a note. There's a link to contact me on my website. You can send me a LinkedIn message, contact Megan. Let us know, what do you want us to talk about? Where is it hard for you? Where is your success? Did you go on a joy hunt this summer and you found joy that you totally forgot about? We want to hear about it.
Yeah. And that reminds me of the conversation I had a couple weeks ago with Dr. Jane Shore about where are you sitting? Are you sitting the summer weather is beautiful. Are you sitting out in your back porch, metaphorically, literally and metaphorically, where everything is safe and the people and it's you all share similar values? Or are you sitting on your front porch where strangers are going to walk by, neighbors you haven't talked to are going to walk by, and again, literally and metaphorically, are you out there with your eyes open and being open to new opportunities, relationships, conversations? I feel like the summer is the perfect season for more front porch living.
Oh, I love it. I loved that conversation you had. I'm such a front porch person. But also for folks who are not, who are introverts, like when is your one moment you are going to be on the front porch? And it's okay to be on the back porch, but be kind to yourself of like, okay, I'm resourced enough now. I have enough sleep. I'm hydrated. I've eaten enough to go sit on my front porch and interact with strangers. And if that's not your typical Megan and I are rare in that we love that. But for everybody who isn't, that's okay. Just being intentional about when is going to be your front porch moment. Yeah. And don't just, make it with your neighbors, like your postal worker and your garbage people and your compost people and, get to know the workers of your everyday life and appreciate them.
People are coming out of hibernation finally, I feel like here in Wisconsin. So we're open to to these kinds of conversations. Oh, well, thank you. I feel like I have just been reminded that I want to just take a minute to pause and to reset how am I diving into summer? What do I want to do more of? What do I want to do less of? How do I want to be graceful with myself? Give myself grace if I botch it up. With all the things we've talked about, I feel like I've got some great ideas to take with me again this summer. And I'm so thankful that you are my accountability buddy in all this.
Thank you. And thank you for being there for me. Often you inspire me. I think sometimes when we express our own imperfections, we're modeling for our friends in our community that it's okay for us to all be imperfect. And you do that for me all the time. And I'm deeply grateful. We had a moment, I'm just going to share this, right before school started the other day. And I had had a rushed morning where it was like last minute, we needed a different kind of lunch and this happened and getting to school late. And then I saw my friend Megan and she too was in that moment, untying knots in her son's shoes. And it's just a really good reminder back to your self-compassion piece, like the common humanity in all this. None of us are in this alone. So just reach out and talk to your friends and family and community about it. Like we're all in the mess. So just be honest about it. No filters this summer, no pretty, perfect filters, just the raw honesty.
And hopefully a lot of joy.
A lot of joy.
Well, there you have it. We are on the cusp of summer. I hope this conversation has given you some food for thought. I'm sorry we don't have a pretty package wrapped in a nice bow to tell you exactly how to have your best summer, but I hope that this episode has encouraged you to pause for just a minute, to find that time before summer begins, to sit down and really think about, what do you want from this summer? If you were looking back and writing a chapter of your memoir about summer of 2026, what would you want it to say? Where would you want to find yourself most when you visualize where you were, what you were doing, who you were with? What does that look like? I hope you will take a few minutes to grab a pen and paper. Maybe that's in the form of a list. Maybe it's just taking yourself outside, gazing up at the clouds and just daydreaming. Maybe it's a visualization. Whatever it is that you need in order to give yourself just a few minutes to think about that, I hope that you'll give yourself that gift. I think you'll end up thanking yourself for that at the end of summer. I will put all of the links that Thekla and I talked about from the research that came out very recently about kids and their safety, both online and in real life. I'll put links to the movies that we talked about. Perhaps those are something you want to screen this summer for yourself or with your family. And I will put ways that you can be in touch with Thekla, especially if you want to join her mailing list and be a part of the book club when this book comes out. Especially if you appreciate these simple, though not always easy, tips to follow, ideas that you can try. I would highly encourage you to get on her mailing list so that you can be in the know when this arrives on a bookshelf near you. And as always, reach out to me, leave me a voice memo if you've got exciting plans for the summer or ways that you are going to attempt to stay off screens or limit your time on screens or whatever it is you're choosing to do to make this the best summer. I would love to hear about it, especially if you just need to say it and you need someone to hold you accountable. Leave me a voice memo. I would love to hear that, and there's a link in the show notes. All right, I'll be back next week with another episode of Gather, Connect, Create. Until then, be well.